Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of Heathen Dad. I'm your host, Wolf the Red. Before we get into this spicy, longer than normal video, I want to thank my wolf pack first, so that we can just focus on the content moving forward. A big "Awoo!" to y'all, and thank you for the awesome support and constant friendship. If you would like to join the wolf pack and hang out with us in a private chat, check my Patreon link below. The Discord link is also in the description, along with the amazing god art that Jayla and I have been working on non-stop. By the time many of you see this video, we will have dropped several new pieces that I think you all will enjoy. Be sure to check out the Redbubble store for those. Alright, thanks for letting me get that out. So, today, I want to talk about suffering and what it means when we are told we must accept and almost glorify suffering in order to appreciate the life that we have. I actually have something pretty disturbing I found recently and wanted to show it to y'all and go over it as a Norse heathen.
To be alive is a gift, and yet to be alive is to suffer. And our suffering teaches us something about being alive, which is that we are not alone. Everybody suffers. And so suffering is not just a punishment for being alive, it's actually a gift. Because through our suffering, we realize that we are part of a human community. This is also known as agape, or unconditional love within Christianity. We don't love other people just for who they are. We love people for who they are not. In other words, we're with them not when they're at their best. We're with them when they're at their lowest. Suffering is like the glue that binds the human community together.
So, that was pretty wild, right? I'm sure a lot of us grew up hearing similar things in our childhood. I don't want to get too far off the track here, but I just wanted to share that I was raised Southern Baptist and was heavily involved in several churches. I actually visited a lot of churches, especially into my teens. My grandfather was a preacher my entire childhood and still has a role in the larger church community. So, when I tell you in my experience this is the broader message that I heard growing up, I want you to understand that I have lots of experience with this myself. And so do several of the people that I reached out to when I started writing this. But let's break down what's being said and why it's absolutely problematic and what we as heathens can do to help mitigate this line of harmful thinking.
To be alive is a gift, and yet to be alive is to suffer.
I would personally disagree with that. Despite the meme,
"Existence is pain!"
being relatable for a laugh, the reality for most is that existence just is. And then there are many factors that sum up our existence. For many, there is a lot of pain and suffering in their life. For those people, I feel deep sympathy. But even most of them will acknowledge that there is much more to life than just suffering. Another part of this is that it's a really privileged thing to say so flippantly, when I know several people personally with debilitating conditions that cause them actual physical pain nearly 24/7. When Christians tell people going through that they should be happy for the gift God gave them, well, I wouldn't blame them for wanting to show them what true pain really was. Just remember, there are people out there being alienated by phrases like this, and they deserve better. Pain can be a part of life, but it is not the whole and defining trait of existence. Christians who try to push this narrative are enabling a lot of problems that we'll get into later.
And our suffering teaches us something about being alive, which is that we are not alone.
I'm not sure how he looked at this video several times and didn't try and reword it before uploading, but man, this is a ridiculous statement. We are not alone by default. No one is truly alone. We can all find similar interests and shared experiences to connect over and empathize with. There are a multitude of ways that humans bond. Yes, suffering is one of them, but so is enjoyment of music, arts, sports, or any other hobby or passion. I would argue that some bonds formed in positivity can be stronger than those formed out of pain. But the real focus is that telling people they have to hurt to form close bonds with people is extremely harmful.
Everybody suffers. And so suffering is not just a punishment for being alive, it's actually a gift. Because through our suffering, we realize that we are part of a human community.
What did he say?
This is disgusting. Suffering is not a gift. This is abuse apologetics, and the foundation for a lot of harm enabled by the faith structures that promote this rhetoric. In heathenry, we have a wonderful system called the gifting cycle. It is a voluntary practice of offerings in various forms to show thankfulness and veneration to those we engage with in it. Everything from gods to landvatir, or landwights, the spirits of the land, our ancestors, and our loved ones here on Midgard. We offer gifts in exchange of gifts given freely and without expectation. These gifts can range from physical items to acts of service or dedication, of time and energy and thoughtfulness. A gift is always a positive thing. Suffering is not a positive thing. This proclivity of Christians trying to find ways to justify the pains and evils of the world and turn it into something beautiful through gaslighting and manipulation is something seen widespread and festering in many denominations. It seems almost necessary for them to spin this narrative, though, due to their claims of their deity being all-powerful and all-knowing and omnibenevolent. So, if something is happening, there must be a good reason, and that reason must be good. The same old God's plan crap you've probably heard 1,000 times, I'm sure. I'm going to let the rest of this finish up and then continue.
This is also known as agape, or unconditional love within Christianity. We don't love other people just for who they are. We love people for who they are not. In other words, we're with them not when they're at their best. We're with them when they're at their lowest. Suffering is like the glue that binds the human community together.
So, this person defines agape, which is a Greco-Christian term, to mean unconditional love. But that love is not supposed to be packaged as abuse. In practice, agape is often used to help people excuse abuse. Myself and many others have had the word agape used against us as a reminder to love someone, despite what they may have done to us. Perhaps there was some marital abuse taking place, but the pastor is good friends with your abuser and wants to help them keep you in line. You will be told, "Oh, but we are taught to love people unconditionally as Christ would." So you must forgive them and continue the abuse cycle. The situation also occurs with power structures in the church itself. The pastor is caught abusing children, perhaps, and he gets right with God. And the community must accept him back, and they and those children must forgive him and sit and listen to him all their lives. These situations are all too commonplace. Using the unconditional love to excuse and cover up abuse, instead of addressing it and punishing it like it should be. You can have compassion for humanity as a whole, but it doesn't mean someone should be forced to forgive their abuser. Also, with agape, it's used against LGBT plus folks, atheists, and us pagans. That whole love the sinner, but hate the sin BS that allows them to be disgusting and bigoted towards people they deem wrong, trying to pass laws to discriminate openly, and hopefully restrict rights of those who disagree with them, all the while standing behind a shield of righteous love. With the last part, this attitude that we don't love people for who they are, and that we love them for who they are not, that we don't care about people when they seem to be doing well, and only focus on those who are deemed to be problematic, that's such a trash take. Yes, we should be looking after people when they need help. We should check on them and listen to them if we have the spoons for it, and not at the expense of our own mental health. But also, we shouldn't be only focusing on people who show they need help and then abandoning them as soon as we deem them better. A phrase I often heard was, "Now you are healed, go forth and do God's work." We should be there for people at all times, when we are able. Not just when we arbitrarily deem them unwell. Many times people are masking when they need help and trying to cover it up. We're all going through things at all times, and for some, it may be something that to others feels simple, but each of us fights a different battle, and the rough times are subjective and valid for the individual. Abandoning people once you think they are fine is sometimes worse than trying to help in the first place. Some other points I wanted to touch on that I mentioned earlier is the whole celebration of suffering and pain in Christianity, and how sometimes new pagans will carry that over subconsciously with their Christian baggage. Remember to set that suitcase Jesus down once you start walking that old path. Another broader mindset that sparks from this is Christians' proclivity to avoiding doing things to make the world a better place for people. Things like climate change, class disparity, racial inequity are all things that can easily be ignored because if it's suffering, it's okay because God is just giving them a gift. So it must be okay and doesn't need fixing. Many of them take it as signs of the end times, and they won't have to be here long anyways to deal with it. As heathens, we are meant to be hard and tough, yes, but personally I found the faith to encourage being in touch with some of the more empathetic sides of life. In my studies and the series of the Havamal, while not being a strict doctrine of an inerrant text, it does show the values people held over 1,000 years ago. Things such as forming strong friendship bonds, showing good hospitality, learning how to listen and really engage with people on a personal level, learning of other people's cultures, and one of the most important is stanza 127. If you see harm, consider it as your own and fight against it. There was no celebration of constant suffering or saying that the gods punished us to show us they loved us. There are gods who may throw challenges at us to make us stronger. Odin and Tyr are known for being the hammer and grindstone that can forge us into something useful for them. But in my experience, it's never been something as overt to call it pain and suffering. And it wasn't so that I could learn their love or to form bonds with others. The greatest bonds I've formed with people these last few years in the community Ocean and I have built is the joy of sharing our faith with others. Being open and honest about our spirituality and educating those so that their start is easier than ours was. We are trying to help lessen the suffering, and through that, the gods have blessed us with a thriving and positive community that we all wish we had when we were growing up. Not one that makes excuses when someone hurts someone else and they claim it was out of love. When things like this are left to fester unchallenged, you get situations like a friend in the community who, in the middle of me writing this very script over the weekend, lost their father-in-law. Religious claims of blood doctrine in a religious cult says that God is in control in those medical situations, and the doctors can't even do something as simple as give blood when it is clearly required, even when the patient is a claimed atheist. The father-in-law was no longer religious, but was unconscious, and the religious family overruled and let him die within 24 hours. This just happened days ago to a close friend most of you watching probably know. And it was because of rhetoric like this that suffering should be celebrated, and it brings us together, that things like this happen all over the country. Don't listen to it. Fight against it. We should be doing everything within our power to stop suffering. This isn't negotiable. So, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with some of the things said here? What were your experiences with abuse and suffering in the church before you left? I got a lot of eye-opening testimonies before I wrote this, and I'm sure others will have more to say. I would love to have an open discussion in the comments. But until next time, go big or go home.